Alrighty, guys. Sorry this is taking so long to get back to you. This is 10 p.m. before the Thursday when I said that all this stuff we should all be caught up with. Now, fortunately, most of this was covered in class, but I'm still going to give this out to everybody. For those of you who need to get caught up so that you can be on target with what we're going to do tomorrow, this is not going to be a huge thing, and you can easily take this information and you can get it caught up. So without any further ado, let's get going. The last thing that we finished off with, if I zoom in, we can see that we've actually placed our elevations, or at least that we've placed our elevation tags. We have not yet put these anywhere on a sheet or anything like that, but we've actually placed the elevation tags, which created our elevations. And if I highlight all these, I want to make sure that my view scale is set to a 1/2 inch and my detail level is set to fine. Those things are going to be sort of the big ticket items that we're going to do here. Now, if you will remember, let me mouse around, there we go, highlight this one little guy. Remember how I said that this line, when you highlight the pointy part of our elevation, this line is the section cut for this particular elevation. And what I want to make sure is when we come over here to the kitchen elevation and the kitchen island, when I select this kitchen elevation, you see how this extends partially into the window, but it also goes all the way through here, across the hall, and touches this next wall over here. I don't need my elevation to go this far. It's just going to show an enormous blank wall. I don't need to see that. So I'm going to pull this back, and I actually don't want, because what's going to show up is you're going to see a little piece of the window right here. I don't want to see that piece of the window in my elevation. So to fix that, I select that line, that elevation line, and I'm going to use my arrow keys, and I'm going to move that line just basically until it misses the window. There are other ways to accomplish this, but for right now, this is going to be it. Also, the depth of this elevation is way too deep. I don't need Revit to calculate all the stuff happening here. We can pull that back to just the other side of the wall. Now we need to repeat this for the kitchen island. First, we'll change our depth. We only need to see the kitchen island. Now remember, those of you on your AutoCAD projects when you were doing a kitchen and you had a kitchen island, it's the cabinetry that's the star of the show here, not every other part of the elevation. So if I were to show this entire elevation, but only give you pertinent information about the cabinet, you do have a lot of empty, vacant white space, a lot of naked elevation on your sheet. So I'm going to pull these back, just this line, just so the extents of my elevation don't reach so far out on my elevation. Okay, those two things really did need to happen. It looks a little funny, but or we'll get there. I'll show you what we need. Now, the next thing that we have to deal with is an actual display glitch in Revit. There's no other way I found to fix this other than to just do it manually. So I'm going to open my bathroom elevation. That's this elevation down here. And because my two non-master bathrooms on the second floor perfectly match this one, when I change one, it's effectively changing all of them. I'm going to open this. Now, I would love to see a very thick, fat line that runs the perimeter of my elevation, but I'm not going to see that until I select this box that's the extents of my elevation. I have to drag this out a little bit before I can see the actual thickness of these lines. Now that I can see them, I'm going to zoom in. And this is the only way to fix this problem. You just have to zoom in, grab the dot that represents this, the edit grip of sort of our viewport, and just manually modify it so that you can see the thickness of the line. It's a weird thing, but it is. I mean, it's there. Now, I don't want to see this window. All I want to do is see a big thick line going all the way across. So if I highlight this window and then right click, I can say hide in view, hide this element, and that whole window will go away. So because I didn't want to see the window trim. If I zoom in, I grab my dot and I pull it over so I see the thick line. You see how we've got a break in the fat line here? The way to correct for that, click on the Modify tab. It's this little icon right here. It's called Line Work. And it allows us to override a piece, just a piece, of the graphic properties in an element only in this current view. So I'm going to select Wide Lines, and I'm going to hover my mouse over that. You see how that highlights. And when I left click, it overrides the default graphic property, which is a portion of the wall that I'm not cutting through, gives it a very thick, hard line, so it's going to mimic a line of the wall that I am cutting through. All right, I'll press Escape a couple of times. I'm going to grab my level indicator, and I'm just going to pull him out over onto the side. I just want ground floor to not obscure anything here. Now, because our dimensions on these elevations are a little bit different, it's partially because of cabinet construction. We are going to dimension things a little bit differently here than we dimensioned them in AutoCAD. So I'm going to use my dimension tool, and you can either use the icon here or come up to the very top of the application window. Either way, it's the same command. I'm going to zoom in, highlight one side of the cabinet to the other side of the cabinet to the bathtub, and then hopefully that'll pick it. Okay, it's not going to pick that up until I hover, tab. There we go. I'm picking up the out edge of the wall. There we go. Now, I know I told you not to do this on the AutoCAD plans, but every place you work is going to have different rules as to how this stuff is done. So I just want to expose you to different ways of doing it. We're going to start vertical dimension from here, and we're going to pick up the overall height of the cabinet. And then I can pick up those. Super simple. I really don't need from floor to ceiling, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Oops, I didn't grab that. Let's try that again. Here it is. And you know what? It's got a weird dimension on it, and there is a legitimate reason, and we can go into the math here a little bit. Let's look at, section 3 brick wall. The reason we have such a strange dimension is because we have a nice, pretty, perfect dimension for our second floor. When you do the math for 3/4 inches or 3/4 inch plywood, and then 11 1/4 inches for the joists that are holding up the plywood, and then you have another 5/8 of an inch or a 1/2 of an inch for gyp, it's going to give you an odd dimension. So that's the only reason. That's the only reason this dimension is not the perfect, nice, even 8 feet. In the grand scheme of things, most people are not going to be able to pick up the difference between 7, 11 1/4 and 8 foot when it comes to their residential construction. Some people would, and different people are going to do different things. I just use nice, pretty round numbers on our elevation points. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Okay, the same process we did for this bathroom, we're going to do for our master bath elevation. But we have a few things here that are even more different. I'm just going to drag these around so that I can see the thickness of the wall. And if I drag this up, you see how that dives up? It's because this part of the ceiling is actually up at the high roof. So I need to drag him up even more. And this introduces an interesting condition. I am going to show you how to fix this, but it is something that we have to, it's just another weird little thing that we have to take care of. Obviously right here, I have a wall that is not going up to the high roof level. So I'll take care of that real quick. I also do not want to see that bit of door trim. So if I zoom in and I highlight it, right click, hide in view, hide the element. Because in this elevation, again, the cabinetry, that's the star of the show. That's what I want to see. I don't need to see the door trim. Okay. Highlight the boundary, zoom in, and we're just doing this manually. Again, this is a glitch in the actual program itself. It's been around for a while. There is no way around it. There's no way to fix it other than to do this little manual trick. There we go. Now this elevation is doing almost everything we want it to do. I'm going to pull. Oh, that's the one I'm going to use. I'm going to pull these elevation indicators out so the text is not overlapping the graphical elements. And I'm going to zoom in on this part up here. Could you imagine having that nice open bit of window in there, the light, the diffuse light that's going to let in? That's going to be beautiful. So what I want to do is I want to cover most of this up, but I want to have a nice big fat line running at the perimeter. And there's actually a tool that will allow us to do that. On the Annotate tab, there's a region. We want a masking region. And you look at the description, creates a graphic that obscures elements in a project or family. This is actually a very, very handy tool. Now, when you click on it, the first thing that it does is it puts you in sketch mode. This is the same kind of mode, you can tell, because it's got that greenish, bluish tint right here. It puts us in the same type of drawing environment that we used when we were generating the profile for a roof, or for a floor, or for a floor slab. Same kind of thing. I'm going to, instead of using thin lines, I'm going to use wide lines, and I'm going to start right here, come across to that intersection, come up until I meet the high roof, or the high ceiling, come across to just outside the window for the elevation, and for the rest of this I come all the way outside and close this off. There we go. Alright, so I have a closed shape. As you can tell, 3 of the sides are outside the boundaries of my elevation. So when I finish my edit mode, there we go. This is masked out. We have a nice clean profile at the edge of this. And then the rest of this is we just throw some dimensions on. Since we're already on the Annotate tab, we can get to the Align to Dimension. And we can work our way across our elevation. Here we go. From the bottom to the countertop. And there's that. And there we are. And just exactly what we wanted. So that elevation is done. Now we're going to look at our kitchen elevation. Now the only thing that I've got wrong here that I want to fix is these door swings on these cabinets are swinging in the wrong direction. I want to flip these around. Ooh, there's something funny happening there. Oh, I know what that is. We didn't quite go far enough. I'll show you what I mean. Let's pull these out. I don't need to worry about pulling this out. You'll see what I mean here in just a moment. Zoom in, modify this, and then get the ceiling. There we go. Ground floor, just move that text over here. Did you see what I was clicking? I've done this a few times. If you can just barely see it, there's a tiny little blue dot right there. That's what I click on to move this thing around. Okay, I don't need to flip the door swings on this. So I'm going to highlight them both, hold my control key. I'm going to come up here to mirror and pick an axis, uncheck copy, and select the that imaginary line that runs through the middle of the cabinet. Boom, there we go, and they're flipped. Now, I could have done the same thing if I go to the ground floor and I zoom in. If I would have selected my cabinetry, I could have used this flip arrow indicator right here. It would have done the exact same thing. If I go back to my kitchen elevation, you see now my door is swinging the wrong direction. If I go to my ground floor, highlight my cabinet, use my flip arrow, back to my kitchen elevation, now it's flipped the right way. Again, more than one way to accomplish the same goal. Ground floor, highlight this little elevation. We're picking up a little bit. There's a piece of window trim that's visible in the elevation, but it's not visible in plan. So I'm going to take this section cut line for my elevation, and I'm going to move it over just a little bit more with my arrow keys, just to make sure, kitchen elevation, that it's not showing up. It's exactly what I wanted to do right there. Okay, now just like everything else, let's add our dimensions. Align to dimension, and I'm just picking on an edge of the cabinet, working my way over, dropping down, from floor, top of the countertop, then floor, toe kick, bottom of the counter, top of the counter. There we go. But you know what? I forgot to extend this up. So I'm going to select my 3-foot dimension, edit witness lines, add that one, and let's add the gap that closes it off at the ceiling. Now to accept these changes, I'm just going to click on nothing. And now let's add, to make it match all the other dimensions, we're going to add one more dimension string, just like that. Now unfortunately, this building section is kind of in the way of that information. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit. It's going to take up a little more space through here than I really want it to. Well, you know what? As an alternate, Control Z to undo that. Let's grab the edge of my elevation and just pull it back so we no longer see. And that's just looking strange. Stranger and stranger, but it does the trick. There we go. This one's dimensioned. Now the only thing we have left to do is we need to take these elevations and put them on the sheet. Interior elevations. Item number 1. Kitchen elevation. Drag and drop. Place it right here. Island elevation. You know what? We didn't do anything to the island, did we? Double click that, open it up. We need to add some dimensions here. Now, we don't need this to be as tall as it is either, so we can drag him down. Let's move him up. Okay, so there's our bar top. There's our countertop. This is the properly sized plumbing fixture. Let's get a couple of line dimensions in there. Now we do it again, except this time we'll include toe kick and the thickness of that. And then we'll get another one here. And what we're going to do that's a little bit different, from the end of the wall to the cabinet, cabinet, hole for the dishwasher, other side of the filler plate, other side of the wall. Obviously some things are not reading right there. If I move just this one, it'll give us the best chance for everything being readable. That's better. Modify. Let's close this view. Now I can take my kitchen island elevation and I can move it in here. Pull that over a little bit. Yeah, that'll work. And if I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to select my viewport. I'm going to grab this little blue dot. And this is hard to do sometimes. You have to zoom in, drag the dot, zoom back out. Keep dragging until the alignment guides show up. There we go. It's just a little visual cue that helps these look like they're connected. All right, item number 3 is going to be the master bath elevation. There we go. Now, obviously, these line up, but these don't. I want those to line up. It really doesn't want to let me. So I'll have to eyeball this one. And then I can select my title, drag him down. There we go. And then add our final bath elevation. There we go. 4 elevations. And if you'll notice, they're automatically numbered in the order in which they're placed on the sheet. Now I can change these if I wanted to. There we go. So when I go back to my ground floor plan and I zoom in here, drawing number 1 on sheet A211, kitchen elevation. Drawing number 2 on sheet A211 is the kitchen island. Zoom in here. Drawing number 4 on A211 is the bath elevation. But let's say I wanted to take my bath elevation and switch it with the master bath elevation. So I go back to A211, and I just want to move these and put them in a different order. Let's say I want that to be number 3. If I highlight this and make it number 3, it won't let me because this is already number 3, which means I can't make this number 4 because that's already number 4. So what I do in these cases is I'll make that number 34. Then I can make that number 3, and because the second digit is the 4, that helps me remember that that's detail number 4. So when I go back to my ground floor plan, this is my bathroom elevation. It now says number 3. This right here is one of the biggest time savers in Revit, just bar none, is the ability to track all that through. Back to my interior elevations. I'm just going to undo all those changes. And the only reason I'm going to undo those changes is because that way it will still match the PDF example that I'm working off of. Okay. My friends, thank you for your patience. This is the last video of this section. Everything else we have going on is going to be based on what we do in class on Thursday. Basically, we get to pop another couple of 3D views together. We get to add some detail into our wall sections. And if we have time, we're going to be adding a little bit of site information because, as you can tell, my site plan is completely empty. We need to add some stuff to that. Ooh, my cover sheet. We didn't cover the cover sheet. You know what? Sit tight. That'll be the next video.